अच्छा, नीतीश कुमार मुख्यमंत्री रहेंगे अगर बीजेपी के ज्यादा लोग जीत कर आए जेडीयू के मुकाबले, क्या तब भी नीतीश ही मुख्यमंत्री रहेंगे?
देखिए, बीजेपी कितना सीट गया है, मेरा एनडीए का साथी है। और ये तय है कि पूरा एनडीए तय कर लिया है, पूरा बिहार कि नीतीश कुमार ही सीएम रहेंगे। तो दूसरा नहीं बनेगा, नीतीश कुमार ही रहेंगे।
लेकिन आपने कहा था 25 से 30, फिर से नीतीश 30 तक रहेंगे नीतीश?
बिल्कुल रहेंगे। जब बिहार की जनता ने उन पर अपना बेशुमार प्यार लौटाया, उन्होंने 20 सालों में जो काम किया, 20 साल में सत्ता रहने के बाद इतनी बड़ी बहुमत से जीत, जब कुमार उसका परिणाम है कि नीतीश कुमार पुनः गद्दी पे बैठने वाले हैं। और उनके लिए गद्दी का मतलब है जनता की सेवा, ना कि निजी स्वार्थ।
Okay, so here at the JDU office, the Karyakartas don't care whether the BJP gets more numbers or the JDU gets more numbers. They are sure that it is Nitish Kumar who will be the chief minister, and not just the chief minister temporarily. Their view is that he is going to continue his full term. But this is definitely a debating point right now, whether NDA will see a change of guard sooner rather than later.
Sooner or rather than later, well, that's a point, because remember, there is also an equation at the center that needs to be maintained. Arunima, thank you very much for that. Let me just go straight across to Zach. Zach?
So on the Modi factor that you were asking, the rallies that the Prime Minister did in Bihar, he had about 13-14 rallies. It plots to about 90 odd seats, and look at it. I mean, it's a runaway lead for the NDA. 67 out of those 4 seats the NDA is leading. And if you look at, the breakup between JDU, helping the JDU as much as it is helping the BJP, and it's across regions. It is in the eastern part of the state, which we were talking about, Trihut, which is the JDU stronghold. The central part of the state, the JDU has picked up a lot of seats. There's also a few seats up in the Champaran. So if you look at the Modi factor, it has made a significant difference.
It's kicking in. So obviously the trust factor, the credibility is important. Yes, sir, you wanted to make a point, Nalin.
Add to this point, if you compare this Modi factor to 2020, you will see that the potency of this increased significantly. In the last election, in the rallies, seats that Modi campaigned on, and there's always a difference between a Vidhan Sabha election and a Lok Sabha election. In the last Vidhan Sabha, it was even Stevens, and it was a difficult seat.
This time, it's a 43.
There you go.
It was neck and neck, even though the India Alliance had a slightly higher.
And that was a COVID election.
It was a COVID
so there was disaffection.
Fewer rallies also.
And fewer rallies, and also the migrants. Were so. And let's have a look actually at that migrant filter.
This time's Modi map, and the result of that is looking very similar to what happened a year ago in 2024. The similar seats and similar results.
So it's like almost like a 2 kind of a seat share break.
Yeah, that's a great for me personally and his brand. Of course, also hit the tracks there in Simanchal. That might have actually led a lot to the polarized nature of that particular outcome. But Nistula, did you see this coming?
Yes, I did. It was pretty clear, and I went fairly early in the election cycle because we had like people going in batches, and I said I'll go first. I went there even before the seat adjustment had been announced, and it was, as I said earlier also, this was
the
an
first
election around Nitish Kumar.
Do you think it was the first mover's advantage?
I think everything worked for them, but there was also a huge overhang of sentimentality around Nitish. And there was a feeling among his voters that the last time they may have failed him, but this time they need to get him on par with the BJP so that there's no question about who's going to be the chief minister.
I think there are just 2 words that explain this election in a simple way: entitlement and tone deaf. I suspect the Congress and Tejashwi said, I'm sorry to use Hindi the sentence, but mere baap. And I think that tone deafness, where they thought just by getting together they were going to win, that entitlement is going to cause them damage. Take a simple example of SIR. They kept going, and I mean, it was my way or highway, people say highway. But SIR, the people who may not want
more information leads coming in through Griha. Atul, let me go straight across to Griha, who's in the hub, in the live result hub. Griha.
Yes, we have an update on Tejashwi Yadav. We do know that he is leading from Raghopur, but there are 30 rounds of counting, EVM countings that are going to happen. Right now, it's just the first round, and he's leading only by 893 votes so far, Rahul. We also have an update on Metli, another star candidate of the Bharatiya Janata Party. She maintains her lead. Again, first round of counting that is on, and the lead is only by 1826 votes. And there is a neck and neck that's going on, as the RJD candidate Kesari is right now struggling to maintain that lead. So he is trailing. Choti Kumari BJP is leading as far as Chhapra is concerned. So the fight really remains, but in very many of the constituencies, if we take a look at the constituencies where BJP is leading, there are about 6 rounds of counting that have taken place in a lot many of the BJP constituencies that we have, particularly in Muzaffarpur, where we see right now 3 rounds, and in Orai we have 6 rounds of counting been completed so far. So it is a quick counting that is happening in very many of BJP seats.
What are you making out on the number of rounds in most of the seats? Is it 50%? Are we seeing more than 6, around 6, or is it fewer than that?
So that's what I was mentioning, Rahul, that wherever BJP is leading, we do see that the number of rounds of counting has in fact gone up to 6. And I mentioned Orai over here. There are some more seats where BJP is leading, where we do see how the number of the rounds of counting has increased. There you see in Sahibganj as well, where you have Raju Kumar Singh leading by 3,824 votes. There the 5th round of counting is happening. If I take a look at where RJD is leading, right now the maximum number of rounds so far is 3rd round, which is going on in Mahishi and also in Kurhani. These are the 2 places.
That's very interesting. Zach, what do you make of that?
Youth factor. I mean, we've been talking about migrant labor. So we looked at the top 10 districts where there is outflow of young people in the age group of 18 to 29, and it plots to about 90 odd seats. And if you look at it, Rahul, again, a bulk of these migrant seats are in the northern part of the state. They're either in Mithilanchal or they're up in the
Kosi region.
Yeah, and then there is, of course, a couple of these districts like Rohtas, etc. in the south. But again, look at the numbers. The NDA at 71 out of these 97 seats. The India Alliance only 25. And the point also being that last time people were willing to give the RJD a chance because they had 19 seats more. They had 44 seats in the same migrant labor belt last time around. They're almost 20 seats down this time. All of that has gone.
These are young voters, perhaps up till about 35. They were supposed to go the other way.
Exactly.
They were not responsive to Nitish.
It's not working. It's not worked for the RJD.
So are we seeing, Swapan Das Gupta, are we seeing the young invest in the future by suggesting that these are the people who can actually do something for us?
Well, I think
rather than just be swayed by
the migrants and most of the other castes are basically moving with a general tide. I don't think there's anything specific here.
No, because unemployment was a big issue.
But they feel that there is a better hope.
That's right.
For them. You know, the credibility.
So they're investing in hope.
The credibility of the NDA was greater than the credibility of the...
So brand Modi and brand Nitish represent certain
They
things.
complement each other in various ways. And I think, you know, much of the conjecture about whether Nitish will be upstaged in a palace coup at this moment is grossly premature. Given the nature of these results...
Improbable though?
I think they are... At present, this is unlikely to happen, partly because there's a resounding verdict, and if a chief minister who's been responsible, who's been a face of that campaign, is suddenly overthrown, it's just very, very bad.
JDU currently is more than the BJP.
That's an important point. That's a very important point. Also, now the JDU is sort of pulling ahead.
Higher than the BJP.
The JDU, I think I want to make a point. You see, the JDU as a grassroots entrenched party has been very feeble. It's been a party of leaders. This is probably the first election which we are seeing in which the JDU may, and I still say may, be acquiring some social depth.
Okay,
this hasn't happened in the past.
That's a very interesting point. Yes, Mr. Shastri, I also want to go across to Suhail Seth on a particular point that he was raising. Yes.
I was just making a small point which is an extension of what Swapanji is, especially when it comes to this youth voter. There was this discussion which direction the youth vote go in, how would they express their position. I think that trust has been expressed in the leadership of the NDA, and that's coming out clearly in where the
four elections after the 2024 setback for the NDA, and in those 3 you've seen a sweep literally for the NDA.
Haryana,
and that,
Maharashtra.
Yes, and Delhi of course. The only state was Jammu and Kashmir, where in Jammu they did fantastically well. In Kashmir they couldn't sort of make those roads as they were hoping to. But Zaka, that's significant, isn't it? The fact that another very critical election in the Hindi heartland, where this particular alliance had stumbled in 2024, even the heartland now responded.
No, I think it's also the BJP's way of saying that 2024 general elections were a blip. There was something that went wrong, it did, and that's why they came down to 240 from 303. But now it's
all those problems.
Yeah, now they have responded to those problems.
They've learned those lessons and they've attended.
Well, keep watching YouTube. Your viewership has really counted on a day when we are counting sentiment across the board. So thank you very much, viewers, for staying with us. But Zach, I just want to come back to you because you're the data care, and I want to ask you a couple of questions fundamentally. Where is that vote, that woman vote, going in those constituencies that matter?
No, it's overwhelmingly going to the NDA. I mean, you have 124 seats, which is half the Vidhan Sabha, half the state, where women have outvoted men by 10%. It's going overwhelmingly in favor of the NDA. Look at this, 97 out of those 124. And these, mind you, are pickups from 2020. 24 of those are pickups from 2020. So if you were to go by just the 2020 results, then this number, instead of 97, would be about 73. And that perhaps would have made a difference, because this is going all across the different regions of Bihar, and particularly a cluster of these JDU seats. Even in that, if you were to break up and see which of the parties are leading, the BJP has 43 out of those 97, the JDU has 41, the LJP 10, and these women, particularly in the second of polls, whether it's in the northern part, in some parts of
Simanchal,
here in Trihut as well, here in the eastern part of the state, they've ended up winning a lot more seats compared to 2020. You want to replicate this map from 2020? Just go back and look at the 2020
in the Anga region,
in these same seats, and look at the NDA.
Zaka, even in the Anga region, which is the southern region on the eastern side, you have a few of the NDA seats, BJP seats opening up. You also have JDU seats there. That's very interesting, because that suggests that even traditional voters of the RJD, perhaps even amongst the Yadav women, are not sticking to caste. They are going for something different. And you can see most of that even in Simanchal, Zach. If you look very closely, there are now blips of orange. There you can see it in that central corridor of Simanchal, and it comes down to the Anga region, and you can see those gains.
And look at this thing for the JDU, the large number of seats that the JDU has got in this pocket, and a large number of seats that the BJP has got in this pocket.
So you're talking about the Kosi Mithilanchal belt.
This belt again. Here the JDU seems to have done well, and here the BJP seems to have done well. But I think
so. When we categorize Mahilas in our data bank, what do we mean by this? Are we saying
in these 124 constituencies? Let me go back to the original. In these 124 constituencies, the women have outvoted the men by 10%, which means for every 10 male voters, there were 11 female voters. So there's one extra
given the
voter
fact that there was actually an extra voter this time, or two maybe, in some places, more than men. This will not just turn out, this is absolute numbers.
These belts, where the women dominated, it seems to have gone overwhelmingly in favor of the NDA.
Nalin.
When we're looking at turnout figures and juxtapose them with stronghold seats, you look at JDU strongholds, and by stronghold I'm defining them as seats which the parties won for the three times in a row. In BJP strongholds and in JDU strongholds, the turnout a percentage has been much higher in terms of the ratio of that compared to RJD strongholds.
So is there now a degree of disaffection or fatigue with the message that the MGB was putting out, or with the leadership itself?
But is there a message that they put out?
At one level they were focusing. I mean, let's be honest. It's not as if Bihar is streaked ahead on certain parameters. So we should be honest about that. Their message was that, look, we can create the jobs that haven't been created in 20 years.
But the message is we are not Nitish, and we are not Modi.
The point is that they were highlighting a deficit. Now, why haven't people...
I've got a point to make on this, that if you look at, and let's look at this seriously. If you look at the promises the Mahagadbandhan was making, they were making even more promises than the NDA, right? And it would have cost them about 60,000 crores. 36,000 crores is the cost of the promises that the NDA has made. The problem with that kind of messaging is that it's just Me Too messaging. There was no coherent vision of a development of a state level. you were saying that, okay, these guys give you this, I will also give you this, a little bit that, but there was also memory of General Raj that came back. So in that, and also I think this alliance is not a coherent alliance in the way that the NDA alliance came together. The Congress and
the stronghold seat. So the JDU had its worst performance last time. They had 43, of which 24 seats they've never lost in the last 3 elections. 21 of those 24 seats the JDU has managed to retain. So which means that's almost a 90%, 90 plus strike rate. So 21 out of 24, of which 20 are JDU, 1 to the BJP, which means that this party has come back literally almost from the brink, because last time, you know, they were down to just 43 seats. This time they've come up to, right now if you look at the state, they're currently the single biggest party. The last time I checked, they were at 74 and BJP at 73. So 75 and 73. So which means that not only does Nitish Kumar get another term, but I think the JDU from 43 to 75, that's a significant, it's the biggest gainer of this election.
Let's have a look at these swing seats, because that gives you an idea of really the switches that have taken place, if at all. So let's pull out the swing seats, because there were about 53, if I'm not mistaken, Zach, that were settled by 2%. There was a difference there. So let's have a look at those swing seats, because they give you an idea of transference. So if a particular mandate is turning, it's the swing seats that will give you the best idea of just how much the mood has changed.
We were also talking about it in the morning. I think one of the reasons why the alliance did not work was because the two principal parties, the RJD and in this case the Congress, were hell-bent on 2 different issues. The RJD kept talking about unemployment and youth and migration and so on, and the Congress, you know, chose to make SIR the biggest issue. And if you look at the SIR, it's had very minimal impact. Look at that again. I mean, if you were to go back to the overall state, out of the 106 seats where the SIR impact was felt most, the NDA had 78, which means that, look, I'm not saying that the issue was not alive or important back in August, where people were saying, you know, we can't find these documents that the Election Commission is asking. But once that issue is settled in September, then no one was talking about the SIR. The SIR was not a matter of concern, because I have got my voter ID, I have my name in the list, and I can go and vote.
So right? Many people were saying, I think it was Nistula who was making that point, that perhaps this was done to detract attention from Tejashwi itself, because there is a sort of internecine competition. Is that what really happened?
Yes, through the Voter Adhikar Yatra, a lot of the crowds it was being seen was, of course, generated by the RJD, which has a cadre in all these areas. And before the Gandhi Maidan final, it seems the father and son, Lalu Prasad Yadav, Tejashwi, had a heated conversation, and he told him that the father told him that it's not your job to make sure that Rahul Gandhi is a leader. You have to ensure that you remain the leader. So at the Gandhi Maidan, the final Congress guys were there, but very few RJD. They didn't turn up. He didn't turn up. And then directly after that, he set off on his own yatra. Tejashwi set off on his own yatra, and there were no other allies who travelled with him.
I've got an alert. This is again related to the elections, but we're now trending not just on YouTube, but we're trending #1 on Twitter. We're the most watched Indian channel now on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram Live, and of course we said in this morning that we are #1 on YouTube as well.
It's the
also because of our guests. Also because of our guests. So we're leading in all social media platforms now. So wherever you're watching, thank you viewers for reposing your trust and your faith once again in India's #1 election destination, that is CNN News 18. Yes.
I want to make a point, Zakir.
Yes.
We are referring to trust. And I think this election is also about the trust quotient, which we have been talking about since morning. There have been a galore of promises made by different political parties. And this result indicates that the trust in the promises made by the NDA is something which seems to have appealed to the people.
Much more.
For 2 reasons. One, the performance of the government in the last 5 years, especially when it came to the Mahila vote. It's not just about that 10,000, but what was done by the party earlier. And secondly, in the case of the...
But it is also about the 10,000. A lot of people will say that you got 10,000 into your account in September with the promise of perhaps more. You know that
and also before that 10,000, there was a lot that was done for women.
Yes, of course, stage of a woman's life. Through intermediate, right up till the time she got married and beyond.
The program.
That's right.
And the number of people who benefited from that. And secondly, in the case of the BJP, their projection of what they are doing in the other states and at the national level. I think both these factors led to this trust quotient.
We underestimate the power of the woman vote a large number of men are outside of the state. They are the remittance banks really of that economy, and they make most of the decisions at home. So we do underestimate that sentiment. Yes.
I want to make a point here that 6 months ago, the NDA took a call on what was going wrong, and they took corrective measures. Right? The scheme for
So what was going wrong?
All of that, the administrative measures, electricity, of a slew of measures. Open has been saying they got the caste. I'm going to give you 2 data points to illustrate this. If you look at the seats where there are friendly fights, whatever a friendly fight means in an election, 11 such, NDA is winning 8 of those.
There you go.
And then if you look at RJD strongholds, it's the seats which RJD has won last 3 times in a row, it's losing half of those. It's 5-5.
At least at the JDU,
how they fought the election and how the NDA has fought the election.
At least at the JDU headquarters in Patna, they've called the election. Arunima, over to you.
I can't hear you very clearly, but if you have come to me, the JDU Daftar, the JDU office is suddenly teeming with supporters, slogans, and also, people who are busy giving sound bites. This entire JDU office currently, there are various workers in small groups who are also cheering Nitish Kumar. नीतीश कुमार ही अगले मुख्यमंत्री बनेंगे।
बिल्कुल, कहीं कोई शक समाधान का कोई सवाल ही नहीं है, और पूर्ण बहुमत में एनडीए की सरकार और मुख्यमंत्री के पद की बागडोर
की क्या तैयारी है?
तैयारी बहुत बड़ा जश्न होगा। अभी 1-2 घंटा इंतजार कीजिए, बहुत बड़ा तैयारी है।
Okay, so they were telling me that there are laddus being prepared. क्या विपक्ष उड़ गया?
एकदम हवा में उड़ गया,
उड़ा हुआ है पहले ही से, इसमें कोई शक नहीं है। पहले ही से उनका हाथ खराब है। ललटेन बुझ गया मैडम। विपक्ष पहले थी ही नहीं कभी, सिर्फ यहाँ पर विपक्ष रही है और कमल खिल रहा है विपक्ष को एकदम बिल्कुल 50-52 अभी जिंदा है, टाइगर अभी जिंदा है। नीतीश कुमार जब तक मुख्यमंत्री हैं, वैकेंसी किसी के लिए खाली नहीं है। नीतीश कुमार मुख्यमंत्री थे, हैं और रहेंगे।
अच्छा, so there are loud slogans, the flags are out. One comment there is, तीर लालटेन को बुझा दिया है। लालटेन is the RJD symbol, तीर is the symbol of the JDU. Even though Bharatiya Janata Party, the other alliance partner in NDA, is doing equally well, the JDU office, the Karyakarta's mood is that this vote is for Nitish Kumar, and on expected lines, the entire office is decked up with Nitish Babu's picture, Sushasan Babu's picture, and all across this JDU office, that is the sentiment that this vote is for him.
Well, those crowds will build up, but I just want to caution our viewers once again that look, we're still in a large number of seats, still in the early rounds, so 3, 4, and I don't want to sort of suggest that 2015 is going to happen once again, but it might. We never know. India is an open democracy where every vote counts, and in this particular election there has been a turnout bump. So things can still change. The RJD still believes that they're in this contest. The JDU has called it for their leader, who they say Tiger is still Zinda. Not
Rahul,
yes.
I just want to make a point about the lack of the circumspection in the RJD camp. They haven't yet started the process of bloodletting, etc. There's a very practical issue involved. If the moment the RJD or the sort of beleaguered force concedes defeat, what you have is their in the counting centers all deserting en masse.
Right.
And that is a catastrophic thing. So as far as they are concerned, they will till the very last moment maintain the pretense that we are in the fight, that these are early days, etc., etc., and because otherwise,
everyone disappears.
It's bad for democracy.
Yes.
I think there's one point that also needs to be made, that if you look at the top 3 BJP in terms of public persona, Honorable PM, HM and Yogi ji, look at the number of rallies they did and how many hours a day they were campaigning versus Tejashwi or Rahul Gandhi.
Rahul Gandhi disappeared for 2 months.
Now,
he disappeared for 2 months.
Eventually the people want to see who they're voting for, and if you have no message, no presence, then guess what? There are no votes.
Well, people say that the Congress tried to play a different hand this time. they reached out more to OBCs and so on and so forth. There's a party that's trying to reorientate its strategy. So
But still, you can
clearly
do
not.
things, right?
Clearly not. Rahul Verma, 3 cephalogical points from you.
I'll give you 5.
Five.
I think given the numbers we are
Everything
seeing,
in abundance this time.
given the numbers we are seeing, one should basically call this a combination of factors. It's a perfect storm. NDA started with a bigger social coalition to start with.
Yeah.
Second, they have an advantage on leadership, right? Like if you compare 2 national leaders from each side and 2 regional leaders, on both counts they have an advantage. Then they had schemes up to election. Fourth, I think opposition gave away this. They had some head start, but as the campaign progressed, they did not act
you're
like
saying combination. How would you back that? How would you say that the combination has worked? Is it because both the partners, the JDU and the BJP, have done better than perhaps even their own expectations, given the numbers here?
both seem to be getting better, like so they are contesting lesser seats, but their strike rates have gone up, right? And not just JDU and BJP, even LJP, HAM and RLP is also pulling up the rate. So it seems like a perfect sort of like...
So it was interesting because some of the junior partners were sort of opposed to the fact that Chirag Paswan was getting these additional seats. There was that talk also.
Oh, but that kind of jostling should be between constituents.
Right.
No one is going to, everyone
So
is
you get
trying
the best
to,
deal for your own alliance.
Yeah, exactly. Like while maintaining your own presence,
Just coming to you,
right?
yeah.
It's always in an alliance, you should also get the best deal, an alliance should also get the best deal, right?
Right.
Only then you will perform as a unit and win. So it's everything, and then the schemes work, and then I think like opposition, their narrative was dispelled, and so at the end the elections become competition between 2 sort of like units, and one look more credible.
Well, look at the numbers right now, friends. Just look at the numbers. 243 leads we've got. And out of that, the NDA is leading on 175. The BJP and JDU within the NDA neck and neck. And that's a big number. The India bloc 63, underperforming even from last time in an election that they were supposed to go toe to toe with the NDA. That's not happened. And if you really look at the Congress side of the fence, down to 12, though the Congress is contesting a fewer number of seats this time, but marginally the left almost not pulling its weight there. The junior partners of the NDA doing exceedingly well. LJP 18 out of 28, that's a big number for the LJP. Knock-on effect means that the JDU is back in. This is a perfect storm that Rahul Verma was talking about. So at 10:45 in the morning, viewers, you have a situation where the NDA is very placed. Number of pollsters predicting a tight fight. We don't have the vote share numbers, do we, Nalin, at this moment? But I would like to have like some of those vote share numbers. Okay, so just pull them out. Yes.
And Prashant Kishor.
So I want to ask you, Prashant Kishor factor. I was about to come to that,
Yeah,
and
what about
I just want to take you guys all across this. Prashant Kishor, what happened? Who's he knocking on?
I don't know. In some ways, his campaign damaged Tejashwi's ability to emerge as a credible alternative.
To the youth, for the youth. So he's taken away. But how do we know? Because what is his vote share? Many people said that if that vote share exceeded 5%, he'd be trouble for the NDA.
No, sometimes things may not turn out, like, you may not be able to do precise calculation. But think of it. His campaign basically showed that Tejashwi, who himself is sort of like not well educated and that kind of things, how will he be able to deliver the biggest promise that he's making? So in some ways, it basically brings.
So the Prashant Kishor factor not kicking in, the third alternative not kicking in.
No, it's also more than that. I think the Congress in particular, as the leading opposition party in the country, must seriously reflect as to why it is being seen as an anti-growth party. And I think this is becoming more and more marked everywhere. Rahul Gandhi's diversions into pet issues of theirs is not having any effect on the ground. He might be cozying himself up to certain editorial writers, but it is not. Now look at the SIR issue. It was a non-issue which he's trying. He's trying to make the constitution, which for some fluke of a reason he managed to get some resonance in 24. He's trying to make that into a main issue. But there's been the larger issues which are there in the country have not been at all addressed by him. And as far as the economic issues are concerned, it's a blank. It's a complete blank.
So you don't have a positive roadmap for change?
They are moving, they are trying to emulate the left wing of the Democratic Party in the United States. That's
I thought you were going to come to that, because that's the Mamdani sort of streak.
There is that streak, which is a self-defeating proposition.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work in Bihar, it can't work anywhere else.
Far predates Mamdani.
Yeah, it predates.
That's true. It does. In fact, we don't know which populism has actually influenced which.
Prashant Kishor, I want to say, he was one of the unknowns of this election. Nobody knew how much he would get, who he would hurt. The presumption was that because he was Prashant Kishor Pandey, that he would be hitting the BJP and the NDA Gadbandhan. But he has been pretty Catholic in terms of just out at everybody. He attacked BJP.
So I want to ask you, because the NGB
is the refugees of
let's go to Pavan Kheda, the first real Congress reaction coming from the inner think tank. Let's listen.
Well, how do you assume this, that we believe it? As I said, the initial trends in itself show that Gyanesh Kumar Gupta appears to be succeeding against the people of Bihar.
अच्छा सर, चुनाव में इतनी मेहनत की, कार्यकर्ता आपका जो है वो बूथ पे लड़ा, उस कार्यकर्ता को कोई मैसेज
अभी देंगे, आप इंतजार करिए। अभी जैसा कि मैंने कहा, ये शुरुआती रुझान है और कार्यकर्ता भी समझ रहा है इस बात को कि ये लड़ाई बीजेपी, कांग्रेस, आरजेडी, जेडीयू की नहीं रही। अब ये लड़ाई सीधा ज्ञानेश कुमार गुप्ता और भारत की जनता की लड़ाई है।
सर, कांग्रेस जो है वो 5 से 7
मैं एक सीट और एक पार्टी की बात ही नहीं कर रहा हूं, मैं एक विस्तृत बात कर रहा हूं कि ये बहुत बड़ी लड़ाई है। अब
कांग्रेस ने जितना जोर सीट बंटवारे में लगाया था, अपने हिस्सेदारी में लगाया था, आपको लगता है उतना आशानुकूल परिणाम?
मैं बार बार एक ही लाइन बोल रहा हूं, आप अलग अलग तरीके से कुछ भी पूछिए। ये चुनाव अब पार्टियों से ऊपर उठ चुका है। ये चुनाव सीधा चुनाव आयोग वर्सेस पीपल ऑफ इंडिया है, चुनाव आयोग वर्सेस पीपल ऑफ बिहार है।
अच्छा, टिकट वितरण में कहीं
अरे आप कहाँ आप दूसरी बातों पे आ गए? जब सीधी एक ही लाइन में सब कुछ समझ में आ रहा है, गागर में सागर है, तो फिर काहे यहाँ वहाँ की बात करें? Thank you.
Well, viewers, predictable Congress reaction. We could have written this yesterday, you could have written this tomorrow, you could have written this 6 months back, saying that at the end of the day, it's the Bihar voter against the election commission, damaging comment, without any proof. The Supreme Court to come forward, submit a signed affidavit, submitted before the election commission with their proof, so that action can be taken, so that even the Supreme Court can scrutinize. But the Congress hasn't done so. Yesterday, viewers, the election commission put out a press release. The first 3 points of that press release talked about how absolutely zero complaints had been received by the election commission after the SIR, or much after that, when the final voter lists were put out. Also, when polling finished, there was not a single complaint by any of the political parties, let alone the opposition, about any manipulation. In fact, there's not going to even be one recount in all of Bihar, a huge achievement given the fact that this time there were only 2 phases, and Bihar is known to be a bit turbulent sometimes on the ground. But despite that, viewers, not one incident of manipulation, malfeasance that could have led to a repoll or violence, nothing. And here you have the Congress party trying to stir passions by suggesting that the people's vote has been stolen by an intermediary that is supposed to be the guardian of the democratic process. Nalin Mehta, this is not good. Sorry to say, this is Trumpian. This is what led to the insurgency in DC. I'm sorry, this is not a great message.
If you challenge every result, then you undermine the legitimacy of the entire system itself and the democratic framework itself.
Which is what they're doing.
And I don't think this issue is getting any resonance on the ground at all in terms of voters. The point I want to make, Rahul, is that what are the 2-3 messages from this election? One is, politically, psychologically, the BJP has grown. Its vote share increased by 2-3%. The JDU has maintained its vote share, but has played a much smarter political game, so it's gained disproportionately far more than it would have otherwise. The RJD has held its ground in its core areas. It's retained its vote share about 0.2% down compared to last time, and the same as the 2024 election. What it tells you is it's only which is the Yadav vote to most of it, and the Muslim vote. It's got its politics wrong completely. Right. It's become a sectarian kind of party, if you like. So, and if you compare the two alliances, the NDA got its, firstly they did hard-nosed politics. They took corrective measures administratively. Yeah. They got the right social matrix, and the opposition alliance, they didn't get the chemistry of the alliance right at all.
That's a very good point. Those questions will have to be asked. You wanted to make a point, ma'am.
Yeah. So going back to the reason why SIR became an issue for the opposition, we also have to, the question they ask is that why, why is states?
Well, the NDA is up at 180 now.
There's a change in electorate behavior as well.
Yeah.
Because I think 2024 Lok Sabha, I think there has been some kind of a spook in the electorate as well. I think that's why we see the numbers of people coming out to vote as well.
Okay, Mr. Shastri.
As you mentioned, the NDA is now moving to 181, and this typically happens as you come to the close of the election, where the one leading moves higher. You will notice the RJD has been coming down also.
This is an absolute whitewash, really. This is, I hate using that term tsunami because it's sort of associated with destruction, but this is a wave unprecedented.
Undoubtedly, it's a wave caused by a Bihar double-engine NDA.
And more voters coming in, exercising a preference towards the NDA. This will appears as a massive shot in the arm.
Not just shot in the arm. I think there's a basic issue with the Congress.
Yeah.
Power without proximity. They talk down to everybody. Early on, you would have the basics of, Janta Janardan hai, unke vote ko hum accept karte hain. Here, there is not even an acknowledgement that X number of crore people have exercised their mandate.
That's right.
That they've done it. They just come out with SIR. Well, and it's like teaching the people what to do.
Let me tell our viewers, we have a bag of tricks that we are going to now unfold, which helps you visualize this data, and we're going to pull out some of our tools, and we're going to show you where this election has been won or lost, depending on which side of the fence you're on, or why these leads are now going to take on perhaps a more definitive characteristic. I don't want to get ahead of myself because that's not the style at CNN News 18, but I think it would require now a rabbit emerging from the hat to say that this election outcome is going to reverse, because the gap is just too much now, isn't it? The gap is too much, Rahul Verma, for things to change dramatically. Even in 2015, things were still sort of up in the air, margins were small, a large number of seats had not been called, but here it appears that the counting has taken place quickly, and there doesn't seem to be that sort of lag.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think trends are going to reverse. You might see 10% movement here and there in terms of seat share, but usually what we have known that once a party takes a big lead or an alliance takes a big lead, there is a bump towards the end in favor of them. And so what we are heading to is perhaps 2010 kind of victory which BJP and JDU had together, or 2015 kind of a victory which Nisula was just pointing out when JDU was part of RJD. So it's a massive mandate and much more like
and that massive mandate is now reflecting. Let's just pull out those strike rates, big numbers. As I said, viewers, these are our bag of tricks, analytical tools that will help you understand this mandate a little better. 76% is a strike rate for the BJP. Almost similar, mirror image, the JDU, they're neck and neck within that alliance. Healthy competition, you can call it. The LJP, which we haven't projected, has also a great strike rate. Perhaps not as good as these two lead engines, but it has done its job of transferring a large number of votes into the BJP and the JDU, specifically the JDU. The JDU has doubled its numbers and more this particular election. So clearly they got the chemistry right. The RJD 27%, half of what it was in the last election in 2020, and that means that there has been a significant erosion of perhaps the other caste that had allied to it, or even the youth voter that many people believe would make Tejashwi the new face of the youth. Remember, in poll after poll, he was leading as the chief ministerial preference. Clearly, his own popularity, or what those polls suggested were his own popularity, has not knocked on to his party, which has big repercussions not just for Bihar politics but also for the RJD and the leadership and the Yadavs, the family at the top, the first family, Yadav family, big problem. And also the Congress 18% strike rate out of the game at halfway, 122. Let's look at these numbers. You can see the cart coming around, the Likki Choka cart coming around, and it's going to give you the numbers there. The NDA at 181, there you can see it. The Likki Choka has been consumed today with great fanfare by the NDA, doing fantastically well at 181, unprecedented. And let me now go back to our... I didn't see this coming. Amit Shah, in interview after interview, specifically to Rahul Joshi, the first one, made it very clear that he is expecting a 2/3. This is now in that territory.
Amit Shah in many interviews has said that he will not say lower than this, right? As a party leader.
This is a tough election. I mean, Bihar is a notoriously tough state to gauge.
Oh, true, but how can Amit Shah just say, oh, we will only get one more seat than the half mark, right? Amit Shah always has to say that we are winning 2/3 or 3/4. So it's not that he alone could see it. I think once the exit poll came, there was always a possibility.
There was only one exit poll that went to this territory, and that was a Chanakya exit poll.
Exit pollsters.
And Chanakya read Chanakya.
I shouldn't say this, but most pollsters are not well trained to convert votes into seats properly.
Wow.
Especially don't weigh this kind of data with the gender differential turnout, then you could get any kind of number.
So previous elections in Bihar have been hyper-local. Many people have used this term. This time it doesn't seem to be.
You see, there was a narrative, at least in the English language section of the population, which suggested that Bihar is a dysfunctional state, that Bihar is actually going to collapse, that Bihar is like the old thing about Bihar being a state of mind, etc. Now, what these results show, increased turnout, no violence, a pretty emphatic victory, and a pretty emphatic rejection. All of these show that there is that dysfunctionality is not in. What we are seeing in Bihar is that Bihar is gradually becoming more and more a normal state of the Indian Union, and to my mind that's a huge achievement.
Huge achievement. And responding once again.
Yes, it is responding, and I think that question still remains for the BJP. You know, this is the only Hindi-speaking state where they don't have a chief minister they haven't had a chief minister ever of their own. This is a handsome victory nevertheless, and as I was saying earlier, it looks like a 2015 mandate except for the other side, which is the NDA, that last time Mahagathbandhan had got it in 2015. There had been a lot of confidence, very quiet confidence from the NDA side through that election.
One big preconceived notion, given the fact that there are 1 in 4 voters are youth voters, Nalin, that the youth was not responding, that Gen Z was not responding to the BJP. Perhaps the Prime Minister has lost his connection with the Gen Z voter, that Gen Z is going to now lead this country.
Gen Z, I think, still had a generational trauma from 20 years ago. I think they've channeled that.
I think this is not just Gen Z reacting to Jungle Raj. I think this is Gen Z reacting to the promise of Sushasan Raj.
And that's important. With this kind of mandate, you can't question that at all. And who are the extra voters who came in? Women and the young. And they are in the areas where the votes increase, the voting pattern is very clear. I think 3 messages from the election. First is, Nitish is undoubtedly the big story of this election. The resurrection of Nitish Kumar, right? Remember 7-8 months ago, people were talking about his health, people were talking about this being his last election, people were saying that he could be removed as chief minister, all of that. So his big story. Second, I think, is the JDU may well face, in the not immediately, but in the next, say, months to 24 months to 36 months an existential crisis, because you have not won. This is the second election they've lost in a row. I mean the RJD, sorry.
Yes.
Thank you for correcting me on that. And the third, on PK, somebody sent me a joke saying, have the total votes polled by Jan Swaraj Party in the entire Bihar election exceeded the number of interviews given by Prashant Kishor in the last 3 months?
Well, obviously the people who do this are supporters of the BJP. Believe that, look, we have a situation where you cannot have an alternative to the development vision that is being offered.
The trend is clear, Rahul.
Look,
the BJP is structurally growing.
So the reason that many people will lament the fact that PK hasn't grown is because he tried to generate an aspirational vote or create an aspirational vote bank beyond caste.
He did, and
I think unfortunately the alternative was then clarified in favor of the NDA.
Okay, yes, you were making that point, Nalin. I think you got.
I was saying that Saket has been making the points in the morning that PK may not have got the votes, but he was very instrumental in damaging the credibility of Tejashwi Yadav in this campaign.
How?
Right. That's
Just
true.
because he basically said that Tejashwi has no agenda, ability to actually rule.
Yes.
In terms of election planning, I want to go back to what Rahul was also saying, that imagine how right the NDA got it, that the also is very identical to the number of seats currently showing for both JDU as well as BJP. And for PK, I want to go back and say that becoming a neta is his Achilles heel. So he takes emotional decisions out of nervousness many times because he desperately wants to become a politician.
Okay, Mr. Shastri.
Yes. Everybody has been talking about the Mahila and Yuva factor.
Yeah.
Beyond a shadow of doubt, it has played a role, but that's not the only two factors that seem to have played a role. Otherwise, you would not have had such a massive mandate. So, Mahila, Yuva, yes, but other than that, I think voters who have certain expectations of this government.
Well, I also believe that traditional RJD voters may have actually begun to peel away, which is that is the reason there's this existential crisis.
RJD has been able to hold on to its base.
But friends and viewers, just look at this. I'm going to break this down according to our filters so we can actually deep dive this data a little bit. Phase 1. Here you see phase 1 data, and if you can just cut to this screen, and we're going to project it up there also on our big screen. Look at phase 1. These are the seats that went to polls the first. It was split exactly half-half. About 122 seats went to polls for the first phase. And in 2020, you saw in the first phase in the 2025 Vidhan Sabha 121, you had a whole bunch of seats. This is the 2020 phase 1. There you saw the NDA done pretty decently up there. But if you this by years and filters, and now you have a look at this phase 1 data, and you look at the numbers, again, there's a gain. So there's this gain that has taken place, which perhaps was not thought through by the opposition. Now let's have a look at some of the other filters. Let me look at the migrant factor, because this is an important one. And this is a factor that I need to just get into 2024 here, just forward. Look forward. Yes, that's the 2020 migrant factor. 1 second. Yeah, sorry.
Just tell it 2020.
Yeah. There you go. Where's the 2025? I'm not the best at this, but I'll come back to this actually. I'll just come back to this. I'll get my coordinates right on this particular wall. Zach, we are missing him here very much, but I will try and come out to 2025. There it is. There it is. That's the 2025 overall number. You can see the gains, 59, and you can look at the topography of this state as of now. And if you really play that number and you have a look at it, that's the overall. And you can see that the gains have been spread quite across. So the NDA doing fantastically well, but their gains have across the state. There is no real pocket where they haven't had an impact. The India, patchy, very patchy, all those big seats there, just a few. You have even in Simanchal a number of seats that have sort of not pulled for them in the way that they were expecting. So you have a situation where these particular seats that were considered sure shot seats in Simanchal not quite even opening for the India bloc. And you can see those, it's the swath of green and on. This is Simanchal. This is where really do fantastically well. That hasn't quite happened, and you can see that on your screens. And here in the Bhojpur region, you still have a bit of a consolidation, Rahul Verma, for the opposite side, the MGB, the India Alliance. But even here, pocket of green and saffron emerging.
So last time also, the phase, the portion that you are showing right now was the phase 1 of election in 2020, and the Mahagathbandhan had done better there in 2020 as well. And that not only that RJD has its presence, but also left parties have presence there, and so those two sort of like voting bloc combined gives Mahagathbandhan some advantage in those districts.
Well, look at the Muslim-dominated seats, and Swapan Dasgupta, this is something that I want you to focus on for just a few moments. Look at those numbers. In the Muslim-dominated, the NDA picking up 13, and some of these seats, Muslims, I'm not saying those seats have shifted, but the India falling back. So even the Congress's politics here hitting a roadblock.
Well, you know, we just say, I think there is a tendency on the part of analysts to overemphasize the Muslim votes. And the Muslims certainly vote, but they are not to vote.
Yeah.
You know, and in this case, what is important is that here we see a counter consolidation, which has always been the approach of the BJP. And to what extent OIC and others may have shaved away a little bit, I don't know. The statistics will point out.
But we'll have to break down those numbers.
And I think turnout will also be a determinant in this factor. But you know, the entire strategy of the Mahagathbandhan to base their entire calculations on what happens in Purnia and Kishanganj and Katihar, to my mind, is a bit flawed because it has its repercussions elsewhere.
Yeah.
Muslim seats, to add to what Swapan was saying, even last time, out of the 53 Muslim-dominated seats, the NDA won 29 and the India Alliance won 19 because of counter-mobilization.
Yeah.
But I want to make one more point. There is a seat called Shior with a per capita income of 19,000 rupees, one of the poorest districts in the country. Even there the JDU is winning, and that if that's an example or that's an illustrator, it kind of shows that even there the Mahagathbandhan or the RJD is not being seen as an alliance that can deliver on growth or on jobs, and I think that is quite an illustrative factor.
Tuhin Sinha joins this broadcast. On that point also, let me go across to him. He's of course the national spokesperson for the Bharatiya Janata Party. Tuhin Sinha, what do you owe this victory to? The Congress, your opponents have come out and said two things. Number one, that the Election Commission even now is only projecting one set of data, which is where the BJP and the JDU are leading, number one. And number two, most importantly, they're saying that this was a vote that has been stolen by the Election Commission. Your reactions to this?
Good morning, Rahul. Good morning, everybody. Historic day for Bihar. And the one message which is very clear is that our my factor, Mahila Yuva, is far more potent than the cliched my factor of RJD Congress alliance. But I'm glad you mentioned, you know, the Congress's perpetual loser behavior, the way they have been maligning institutions, the way they have been casting aspersions, this time 3 months before the elections. There are two factors which have been at play over here.
Okay.
Number one, the pro-incumbency factor. The pro-incumbency factor, people are habituated to, you know, a progressive government that Bihar has seen in the last 21 years, but at the same time, you know, there is an anger brewing against RJD Congress for their negative politics, for Rahul Gandhi's, you know, petty behavior, the way he, you know, frivolously talks about Chhat Puja, the flippancy, the charges, the allegations against institutions which have not been proved. So unless the RJD and Congress take note of this anger, they will be diminished further. But yes, finally, it's an endorsement of more.
Okay, so let me bring in Surjit Bhalla also on this, but viewers, on your screens right now, we're showing you the projection of how the assembly is going to look like if things stand. 183 NDA sweep of Bihar, the India down to 55. And you can see here, friends, that this is going to be a very big problem. This is going to be a very big problem for the India bloc to justify they're going to have to come out and say to their, they aren't talking about the state of Bihar. That's done and dusted. Now I'm talking states that are going to the polls. But let's look at the India numbers, the NDA numbers: 183, JDU 79, BJP 78, neck and neck, LJP 20, HAM 4, RLM 3. The bit players adding up. They're the all-rounders. The tail has, it's a long tail. The India bloc, apart from its opener, the RJD, which has sort of blown its chances. Everyone else either in single digits or barely over double. I want to go straight across to Surjit Bhalla because the BJP national spokesperson says this is a positive incumbency vote. 20 years and Nitish is increasing his footprint in Bihar. Mr. Bhalla, we do look at the micro data and that suggests enough jobs been created in Bihar over the last 20 years. Many new industries that could have come up have sort of given Bihar the go by, yet you have this verdict.
Look, is and has been the poorest state in the country for decades. At the same time, over the last 20 years. So that's the point to be made there, is that the macro growth rate of Bihar is not as bad as is portrayed. It is poorest, it remains the poorest, but it is gaining. But I think that was not an important part of this. As important part has done exceptionally well, particular in terms where between the ages of 15 to 24, women in Bihar now have almost the same educational attainment as the men. This is a radical transformation in Bihar. Number one. Number two, I think the opposition was incredibly weak. I travel in Bihar.
No, weak on messaging, weak on arousing perhaps
weak
hope.
On leadership, weak on leadership, weak on messaging, weak on talent. All they have, both of them, are dinas. The age of dinas is
okay, so I'm going to bring you back from the politics back to your forte, and I want you to have a look at this. I don't know if you can see the screen, Mr. Bhalla, but these are rural seats, rural constituencies in Bihar. It tells you something. I think what Surjit Bhalla was saying, Tejashwi Yadav is trailing. That's a big, but Surjit Bhalla, look at these, the number that the NDA has in rural are 62 and the deficit is 59 for India, almost a reversal. If you look at this was not supposed to be traditionally BJP hunting ground. The JDU, yes, had a presence, but not the BJP. The NDA picking up 62 in rural areas, the India Alliance losing 59 there or trailing in 59. What does this tell you? This is counterintuitive.
Well, what it tells me is that the media and most of the experts, and including the exit polls, have got it drastically wrong. And I'll give you a couple of reasons why that is the case. First of all, the media and experts, and I'll lump them together, occupied with caste for decades, and they haven't seen that India has changed. So they're still harping on the caste will cast your vote and all the rest of that, what I think is nonsense. So, number one, caste is no longer and has not been a factor for decades. Second, when I was traveling in Bihar, all the media was preoccupied with the rupees 10,000 dole that was given. And they said, is this a game changer? And I'm saying it now, it was absolutely irrelevant to the decision of voters. Voters vote on performance and expectations of performance. On performance, the NDA comes out number one in Bihar, and on expectations of performance, the Mahagathbandhan comes out at negative infinity. So I mean, it was the easiest call in the world to say that they would win, and they would win by a majority. I must say, I am surprised.
Tejashwi Yadav
Yes.
trailing, Tejashwi Yadav trailing, Rahul Gandhi
No.
missing.
No.
They were young leaders. They're supposed to be the future of this country. And if the future is not being able to promise a roadmap.
Rahul, I think it's a mistake to call either Tejashwi Yadav as a leader.
Okay.
They happen to be in dynasty. Look at Lalu Prasad Yadav. Now, he was a leader. I mean, he had the pulse, had politics in his blood, and was a thinker, a political thinker. Not interested in politics.
Not interested in
They were
politics,
discussed.
disinterested that we are looking for. Is it just not interested or disinterested? I don't know. People use that word variedly. But I want to go across now to Abhinavji, who joins us, Avinashji rather, who joins us, JDU spokesperson. Avinashji, rural seats हैं, उसमें भी आपने बहुत बेहतर लीड ले रखी है और तेजस्वी यादव राघोपुर से ट्रेल कर रहे हैं.
डेफिनेटली ये सारी चीजें जो है मैं आपको बता दूं दैट इज जस्ट बिकॉज ऑफ द फॉल्स नैरेटिव दैट द महागठबंधन एंड देयर अलाइड पार्टीज हैव क्रिएटेड इन द माइंड्स ऑफ बिहार बिकॉज द थिंक द पीपल ऑफ बिहार आर rather Polish and their trap, but that has exactly not happened. What has happened is that the Biharis have voted for development which has started in year 2005, and they want it to be continued because the shame which has been associated with the word Bihari because of the period that we have seen in during 1990s till 2005, if I may say, has actually turned into a crush in a way, and that image has been improved. That image has improved just because of Honorable CM Sri Nitish Kumar ji, and that belief. And this I was listening to Sir previously, and he said that expectation of performance, that is exactly what the people of Bihar is thinking right now. That the kind of jumla which Tejashwi to the people of Bihar and uncalculative, if I may say, and the people of Bihar has cast that, and they know that it is just election.
Okay, let me bring in the RJD spokesperson also. Clearly, you are advancing this theory that these individuals, your opponents, had no positive message. Let me bring in the RJD spokesperson here. They're up. Yes. Can I go straight across to the RJD spokesperson now? Yeah, there he is. Rakesh ji, yes, आपकी पार्टी काफी पीछे है और अभी हमें ये भी लग रहा है कि तेजस्वी साहब जो हैं वो भी अपनी सीट राघोपुर से ट्रेल करें. हाँ, 3 राउंड ही काउंट हुए हैं 30 में से, मगर तभी भी
जी मैं सुन रहा था अभी काफी अविनाश जी भी बोल रहे थे. अभी वेट कीजिए. अभी जिस ढंग से जनता ने महागठबंधन के पक्ष में वोट किया है, ये शुरुआती रुझान है, शुरुआती 2-3 राउंड है. आप वेट कीजिए, आप देखिए. हम कॉन्फिडेंट हैं कि हमारी सरकार बन रही है और बनेगी. और अविनाश जी बोल रहे थे जुमला के बारे में, एंड मीन्स मोस्ट ऑफ द पीपल का ईच एंड एवरी पीपल इंडिया नो हु इज नोन फॉर द जुमला, लाइज एंड लाइज आफ्टर लाइज.
बट सर आप कैसे कह सकते हैं, क्योंकि देखिए ऑल लाइज आर इजिली एक्सपोज्ड and you went to the voters saying that don't fall for the lies, but clearly the voters have not trusted you, sir. That's fundamentally the issue. And if Tejashwi right now, though very early days, 3 out of 30 rounds have been counted, so those leads could change. But if he's trailing right now, gives you an idea of the sentiment. Look at the overall numbers. The NDA is at 190, sir, and at least 4 across all constituencies. This is a trend.
Yes. The same thing happened in 2015, the same thing happened in 2020, and now also this is the same trend. So
अविनाश जी, योर रिस्पॉन्स, ये ट्रेंड इसलिए है क्योंकि ईसी घपला कर रहा है, स्लो काउंटिंग कर रहा है, ये तेजस्वी साहब ने आज सुबह भी बोला, कल भी बोला. हाउ डू यू रिस्पॉन्ड टू दिस?
Easy takeaway that the opposition Mahagarbandhan always takes. Losing, they will always doing its work. But rather, instead of blaming other parties, they must introspect for what they have done to Bihar and what people remember.
Okay, just hold your thoughts, because something dramatic has happened in the last 2 minutes. The NDA is now at 192, so it's closing in on the 200 mark. The BJP is a shade ahead of the JDU in that race. The LJP, 22 out of 28 seats that it is contested. The magician is back at the wall. I was floundering. I couldn't bring out those figures. But just take us through the overall numbers, Zach, and the rest of it, because this is...
you were trying to do the phase 1 and phase 2. So there's an interesting data there. You know, there isn't much difference alliance-wise. Out of 122 in phase 1, the NDA had 94. But if you look at the breakup, the JDU has done better than the BJP in phase 1. It's got 46 and the BJP is 39 out of the 94 that the NDA got in the 121 that went to... Again, they've got a bulk of the seats as an alliance, 98 in the first phase, 97 in the second. But in the second phase, if you were to break it down as parties, it's almost the mirror image. The JDU is number 2 at 34 and the BJP number 1 at 40. And I think a large part of that is because of this Mithilanchal, this northern, north of the Ganga belt. Here in Simanchal, where the JDU did not do well last time, they've got a whole pocket of seats. And then, of course, in Bhagalpur, which is their sort of stronghold seat,
so would this be some Muslim voters might have even voted for Nitish?
It's possible. It's possible that Nitish has had some Muslims voting for him. But more than that, I think in Simanchal, what happened is one collapse of AIMIM. I think he's completely gone. Whichever Muslim voter voted for him last time has now come back to Congress and RJD. But more importantly, I think there's been a degree of... Remember, this happened the day after the Delhi blast. This happened exactly a day after the Delhi blast. I think
so you're saying that there could be counter polarization. Rahul Verma, do you think that could be the case here?
So first of all, we are in the zone of 2010 election results, when BJP had got 91 seats and the JDU has got 102 seats. So they are basically touching 200 mark, and given that number, so at that point when BJP, the NDA had won 2010, I think Nitish Kumar had some sort of like presence among Muslim voters. I don't know whether the alliance would get any votes now, given the kind of polarization that has taken place in last 10 years. But here and there, 1 or 2 individual candidates might have got this. I think it's basically what seems to be happening.
JDU was criticized for reducing the number of seats that it had given to Muslims recently.
But what seems to be happening, that it's not just that the all allies are putting together, it's now the sum is becoming whole than the parts, right? Each one is pulling the weight, and then they are basically getting an extra leg up.
So look at the Muslim dominated, what was saying, even in Simanchal, a large number of seats out of the 53 Muslim dominated seats, 41 of it, that's more than, again, close to 90%, 41 out of that 53 has gone to the NDA partners. And in the Simanchal region, you have a lot more Greens this time, which is the JDU seat, as opposed to what we saw last time. So I think a degree of counter polarization, reverse polarization, call it what you want, seems to have happened here.
Seems to have happened, Nalin?
No, so there's absolutely counter mobilization which has happened.
And I'm talking actually, moving beyond the Muslim vote, the rural shift that has taken place. I mean, that is, I think, almost landslide. I mean, this gone the exact other way.
If you look at the number of gains that JDU is making, look, it's a complete sweep. 23 for NDA, 46 for
I mean, what the India and the others have lost, NDA has gained.
Pawan Verma, I believe, is...
Pawan Verma, let's go straight across to Mr. Pawan Verma. Mr. Pawan Verma, look, it was anecdotally stated that it was going to be a two alliance battle and that perhaps the Jan Swaraj may not be much of an influence on the ground, but here our experts seem to suggest that the Jan Swaraj has had a catalytic effect, that it has actually hit Tejashwi because the message of who can deliver development and help the youth has focused that question in favor of Modi, favor of Nitish Babu, and therefore you have this massive runaway wave almost that seems to be consuming.
Well, Rahul, Jan Swaraj has had an impact on the ground. I don't believe to begin with it was our intention to strengthen either of one or the other nation. We came with, it is a disappointing result for us, without doubt, and I have no hesitation in admitting it.
On the EC website.
The many years of my public life, I have seen such situations happen. But we have a consolation that we came with the right message, the right ideology, with absolute sincerity to carry out fundamental changes on the ground on issues which matter: jobs, education, migration, corruption. There was nothing lacking in our effort also, although we are a new party. The kind of effort, Herculean effort that was put in 3 years, including 2 years of a Padyatra, also is more than a consolation for us. Yes, as against our effort and our ideology, the results are disappointing.
Pawanji, Zaka here. I do want to know, No, you campaigned for the last 3 years. He was the longest campaigner on the trail. He in fact even said in interviews, either I'll get 10 seats or I'll get 100 seats. Today, Jan Swaraj has got 0 seats. And I was asking my colleague Nalin to look for the vote share on the Election Commission data. ECI is not even showing the vote share data. So I suspect it might be, 1 or 2%, not more. So clearly, the message did not resonate. Or maybe Bihar is still stuck in the old caste play.
Possibly. Change takes place gradually. There could have been mistakes in our campaign. I believe our message did resonate. We have enough evidence from the ground, but given two established coalitions and the enduring appeal of Nitish Kumar, above all, which is the surprise of this election, and I have worked very closely with him, I think in a sense marginalized a third player, and that I think is what has happened. I mean, we had an impact, and above all, the issues we have raised are going to be a prominent aspect of the agenda of governance in Bihar. I can assure you of that. But yes, the results have not vindicated.
So let me bring in Tuhin on this point. I think, look, you can't fault the Jan Swaraj for not approaching this with sincerity. They didn't go the caste route. Yes, I'm not saying that they ignored the caste route. There were seats that were given, but the message was not caste focused and caste centric. So just stay on with me, Mr. Verma. I want to bring in Tuhin to respond to you. Tuhin Sinha, the criticism that came from Jan Swaraj was that, look, the economic indicators suggest that you don't deserve a second chance. Yet somehow you have transcended this criticism. How has that happened?
Well, definitely, Rahul, there is room for improvement, but Bihar has come a long way from 2005. And people of Bihar still believe that the only party which can take them ahead is the BJP. It's not Jan Swaraj, it is not RJD. When it comes to Jan Swaraj, they raised some good issues, but there was a lot of dichotomy. I have come to know from people in Bihar that the maximum amount of cash, they were, while they claim to be an honest party, they were distributing mobile phones, they were distributing cash. So Jan Swaraj came across as a party that was not genuine. And by the way, I have one question for Mr. Verma. Prashant Kishor, instead of focusing on his campaign towards the end, was more focused on how many seats would Nitish Kumar get. He had made all
claims about JDU, that if JDU gets a certain number of seats, he will quit politics. Now, I don't want him to quit politics, but at least, you know, he should learn from his mistakes and he should be a little more humble.
What are the lessons?
Because politics is a...
I don't want to make combat, but let me just ask, where do you think you need to, Mr. Verma, improve that either message, presence? Where is it that you think there is space to improve?
Rahul, first of all, to what Tuhin just said, I wish we had the cash to distribute. I wish we had the mobile telephones to distribute. It may have helped. We didn't. We know our limitations. But we have realized one thing, that purely on the sincerity of our ideological thinking, in a state as massive as Bihar, perhaps the time available of 3 years
Verma,
and
it cuts the other way. So just allow me here. It cuts the other way. If you're saying, I wish we had cash to distribute, probably referring to the 10,000 rupee handout, you seem to suggest that that was a need born out of compulsion. And if the compulsion is so great, means that there's a huge